Hello, dear friends. Welcome to another Friday live stream. I am so excited for this Aries New Moon live stream for a lot of reasons. And I'm going to do my best to lay out those reasons here, real quick. The first of which is that we have a very rare event happening, many rare events actually happening right now in the skies, but we are having two Aries new moons in a row. So we'll have an Aries new moon here coming up on March 21st at 0 degrees. And then we'll have a Libra full moon 2 weeks after that. And then 2 weeks later, the following new moon is also happening in Aries at 29 degrees, almost all the way to Taurus. It's 29 degrees, 49 minutes. So it's barely under the wire. The moon and the sun will both move on into Taurus together after that second one. And that second one is a total solar eclipse. So here in I guess about 4 weeks, we'll be having another Aries New Moon live stream to talk about the second one. So that double dose of Aries New Moon energy is extremely, extremely exciting to me. New moons are all about a soul infusion. So, like a new beginning, a new seed getting planted. Um, that happening in Aries twice right before, like there's a whole thing that's happening with Aries energy in the next few years, where even in the next few months, in July of 2023, the north node of the moon will move from Taurus to Aries. So we'll have these two Aries new moons to wake something up, to infuse our soul with a double dose of whatever this Aries energy is trying to convey. And then we'll have 18 months starting in July of the north node moving through Aries, building on what these two new moons are bringing to the surface for us. And okay, so we'll have the two new moons, then we'll have the north node go through Aries from July of 2023 through about the end of 2024. And right around that time in 2025 is when Neptune will finish its like 14-year journey through Pisces, and it will enter Aries. And Neptune is a slow moving planet. So then we're signed up for, I don't even know, it's like 10 or 15 years of Neptune moving through Aries. And that'll start in 2025. And right around that time, which it doesn't always work out like this because Saturn moves so much faster, but also right around that time, 25, 26, is when Saturn will do its next pass through Aries. So I feel like these two new moons, these back-to-back double dose of Aries energy that we're being loaded up with, puts down this foundation that then the north node going through Aries adds this awesome layer to that foundation. And then on top of that, about 2025, we have Neptune and Saturn going through Aries, which is only going to continue to add on to this foundation. So today, all of that to say, today, what I want to talk about is, what is this? What is this that is just starting, that is one of the like very, very common themes that is going to be playing out really heavily in the next like 6 years with the North Node and Saturn. And like I said, more like 15 years with Neptune going to be in Aries. So we're having Aries move into the forefront in a way. And I think these two new moons that we're experiencing, March 21st and April 19th, are setting the stage. They're showing us the very beginning. And so I want to look at Aries energy and like, what is it that's going to be infused into our souls? I can't wait. I can't wait because I okay, so to do this conversation, Normally, I've been talking about the axis, like the sister sign pair, as part of the full moon conversations, because that's when we have the moon and the sign across from where the sun is. But I think the best way to like crystallize what Aries energy even is to bring it into this context of Aries and Libra and like really look at that whole axis and like what is it and what is this force, this Aries Libra force that exists inside of all of us. So when we look at Aries energy, that is the self, and when we look at Libra, that is other. So the self versus other. And these two form an opposition. They are opposite of each other. And when you think about it like self and other, those are very opposite. They are not the same thing. And like all oppositions, it feels like how are you supposed to do the one at the same time as you do the opposite? It's hard. A lot of times it's impossible. And a lot of times we end up in those opposition places, we end up having to pick one. We end up having to do our discernment process and decide for this situation, for this moment that I'm in, is this one the better one or is this one the better one? Can I 80% do this one and maybe 20% I can manage to do this one? Like, what is the mixture that I'm able to do given what circumstance I'm facing? With these Aries new moons and with the North Node about to go through Aries and with Saturn and Neptune making longer passes through Aries later on in the 2020s, this is a time of the rise of the self. It's a time of, I think especially in the civilized world, it's almost like we civilize ourselves into a place where we are almost numbed out to our individual self, where our individual fire, our individual ability to fight for what we want, our ability to get mad and express healthy anger and healthy aggression, those are not prized qualities in most cultures around the world, in especially civilized cultures. We are praised for our ability to harmonize with other people. And that is that other side. That's where you look to the group, you look to the people around you, and you figure out, like, how can I bring balance to this? How can I create harmony with these other people? And you start changing your shape so that you create the missing piece. You create the harmony as far as like keeping the group in balance. There's nothing wrong with that. And we are all 12 of the zodiac archetypes. But where we've come to as far as our society's consciousness evolving, we're just finishing up. We have a few more months left of the North Node going through Taurus and the South Node going through Scorpio. And so, with that, we've been working on releasing our attachments to other people and to finding, so Scorpio South Node, releasing attachments to other people, and Taurus North Node forming an attachment to finding our self-worth inside of ourselves, inside of our nature, inside of the simplicity of we have breath and we have food and I have shelter, and therefore my animal needs have been met. I don't need to depend on this other person. I don't need to receive abuse from this other person just so that they'll take care of me. I can take care of me. And so that is the cycle, the 18-month cycle that we only have a few more months of. So these last like 15 months thereabouts, that Scorpio South Node has been really cranking up the pain associated with our attachments to get us to let go of those attachments wherever possible and to revert that attachment back to ourselves so that we are depending on ourselves, not depending on other people. And then we're about to have the nodes move. The South Node will go from Scorpio to Libra, and the North Node will go from Taurus to Aries. And we'll continue. We'll South Node through that Libra. It's going to be the next layer of where are you coming from in every moment that you're engaging with other people? Are you, the Aries being the self and Libra being the other? Are you harmonizing with the other, or are you harmonizing with yourself? And with the South Node going through Libra, everywhere that you are harmonizing with other people, there will be a pain point of some sort that rises up to show you that you're out of alignment with you and you're working in favor of harmonizing with these outside forces. And again, none of this is right or wrong. Like, that is so not the point of any of this, to like cast blame, like, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't be doing this. It's like with these Aries new moons, I believe that we are going to be waking up to the desire and the pleasure of listening to ourselves. The simplicity and the ease of, you don't have to satisfy 8 billion people that live on this planet. You just don't. You don't even have to satisfy one other person who isn't you, right? Like, Aries energy is where we are tuned in to our inner essence, the animal essence, the fire, the spark that is us, the life force energy. Like, if you feel your life force energy, like if you feel your aliveness in your body, you feel your heartbeat, you feel your lungs automatically breathing in and out, you feel your life in your body. When you sink into that, can you trace it back to where the life is coming from? Like, where is the source? Where's the head of the well where life force is flooding into your body? Where is that? And I ask that question earnestly because I think for each one of us, that's a helpful journey to take inside of ourselves, to find the well or the spring where our life force energy is flowing from. Um, when you get out into astrological circles, one piece that I heard is that Aries is associated with the root chakra. And that personally made sense to me because when I journey into where is my life force coming from, it truly does feel like it's flowing up from the base of me, up through the rest of me. And I say all of that because I think when we, like, let's say we get into a situation that includes other people. So now we have the other being introduced. The self is always here. We can't escape ourselves. So we always have the self, but now we're in a situation where there's another person, at least one, and now we have the other in the mix. And so at that point, the choices get a lot more dynamic, because when, like, imagine if you're in the car by yourself driving somewhere, you don't really have a place, like you don't have a time that you need to be there. If you need to go to the bathroom, if you're hungry, like, you're probably pull over at the next place and go there, pull over at the next food place, get some food. When you're with another person, now it's like, "Hey, I need to go to the bathroom. Do you need to go?" Like, you're now in a conversation about my needs and what are your needs, and they tell you, like, "Actually, my back is hurting, like, can we just get home as fast as possible?" And now there's competing needs in the situation, and your likelihood of stopping for you to go to the bathroom or stopping for you to get something to eat, it's now less likely, because now, in order to go ahead and meet your needs, to stop and go to the bathroom, to stop and get something to eat, you've got to go against what this person wants, which is to get home as fast as possible because their back is hurting. So that's just one example where their needs are different than what your needs are. And in this one moment in time, this is a this is zero sum. Like, only one of us can be the winner and one of us is not going to get our needs met. And so when you have that dynamic with other people, it's like, do you harmonize with their needs? Do you put pedal to the metal and you get them home as fast as you can and your bladder's about to burst and your stomach is eating itself? Is that what you do? Maybe. Maybe. It depends on who is that and how bad does their back hurt, and, like, how much do I care about their back hurting compared to my stomach eating itself? Like, it's a decision. It's one of many decisions that we make all the time when we deal with other people, when we have their needs or our needs, and we can't do both. And I think these Aries new moons are going to they're going to turn up the contrast between that makes it easier to see. And contrast is a dirty word, in some circles where it's like, ooh, bad experience. I don't want that. Contrast, all it means is like if you think about like photos, like photography, like color balance, like the contrast is the difference between like this color and this color. And with added contrast, you can really see the difference between the two. And so that added contrast, I think, is going to show us that harmonizing with other people, the payout is so small. And harmonizing with ourself, I think the benefit is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that when we leave our needs unmet in favor of granting other people what they need, the consequences are going to get bigger. The consequences of leaving ourselves with unmet needs are going to get bigger. And that I don't say for any reason other than to say, like, I think that's how the contrast works. It's going to like really, really show you like a winning strategy versus a non-winning strategy. And with all of these planets and the North Node and all of this like heading for Aries, it's like we are moving into an age where the individual is meant to make sure the individual's needs have been met. And that there can be the label of selfishness applied to Aries energy, that like Aries energy is selfish and it makes people selfish or whatever. Like that's the shadow of Aries energy. I don't even think that's the shadow. I think that's the light side, the ability to be selfish about what you need, because nobody else, like this is one of the things with Aries energy is like nobody else is coming to meet those needs. Like it's nobody else's responsibility to make sure that you feed your stomach or that you don't injure your bladder by holding your pee. It's nobody else's business how your needs are being met or not. And I see these two Aries new moons, the Aries North Node, Saturn, Neptune, all of that Aries energy, it is amping up the level of personal responsibility, personal accountability for each individual. Like, who is responsible for you? Whose job is it to make sure that you are living the life that you want to be living? And these, again, I don't ask these questions lightly. I ask them earnestly because these are inner explorations that are going to set the stage of like these next several years and us each growing into someone who's capable of meeting our own needs. And I want to tell a little story that I talked about this in a podcast episode recently called Pain Tolerance. And basically, there was a situation where I was in a massage and I had told the lady up front, like, I want super gentle pressure, like so gentle, so light, like barely touch me. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay. So we're on the same page. And then she starts like here and she takes her thumb and she's like rubbing it on the top of my head. And it hurt so bad. It hurt so bad. I I can still, when I think about it, I could still feel her thumb like digging into the top of my scalp. And I let her do that to me for at least 2 or 3 minutes, that she like used that like intense pressure on me before. And this is the really interesting part, I think, before she asked me, how's the pressure? And then I said, can you lighten up a little bit? And she's like, oh yeah, for sure. I really got to thinking afterwards, if she hadn't asked me, if she hadn't said, how's the pressure? Like I was suffering. I was like in agony at her pressure for several minutes and I didn't say anything. She was hurting me for several minutes and I didn't say anything. Like it just blows my mind. It blows Jerry's mind too. Like, what is that? Like I'd never seen her before. This was my first time seeing her. Like I don't know her. And yet the thought of telling her that what she was doing was wrong, I just couldn't bring myself to say the words that, "Ouch, you're hurting me." I put up with it. To keep the harmony in that situation, I allowed myself to suffer. This was like 3 or 4 days ago. So, like, we all have room to improve on advocating for our needs and speaking up for ourselves when our space and our needs are being compromised. Like, she's hurting me, and I could have said something and I didn't. I just felt like I didn't have the tools or the resources to be able to speak up in that moment until she asked me, and I told her to lighten up. And then after that, it was like she used the light pressure for a few minutes, and then kind of maybe she forgot and like went back to using her like intense pressure. And at that point, I was able to say like, "Hey, can you lighten up a little bit?" And she was like, "Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, no problem." And then another few minutes goes by and she forgets again. And so I tell her again, like, "Hey, can you lighten up a little bit?" She's like, "Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot. Yeah." And so it's like, whose responsibility is it to make sure that our needs get met? Even when I told her, even when I finally figured out how to tell her, like, "Hey, please lighten up," she met my need for just, like, a few minutes and then went back to not meeting my need. And so at that point, like, then what do we do? Do we tell her again? Or do we go back to suffering in silence? And it hurt so bad that, like, I had to tell her, like, "Hey, can you lighten up a little bit?" But I wonder again, like, if it wasn't that bad, like, if I was able to tolerate it, would I have spoken up, or would I have let myself get beat the hell up for 50 more minutes? Like, what would I have done? And I gotta think, like, judging by those first few minutes, I think mostly if it had not been so extremely painful, I would have put up with it. And so that's what I'm talking about. Like, I think the contrast, the extreme nature of what's coming with these Aries new moons, with the North Node coming into Aries later this year, with Saturn and Neptune going through Aries in a few years, that the pain of not advocating for our needs will become too much to bear. It will become so intense that we have no choice but to say, ow, ow, back off. That hurts me. And to get good at when you have to choose between keeping the harmony with other people or advocating for yourself and what you need, we're going to be in situations where one, nobody else is going to help us get our needs met. And two, the results of not meeting those needs are going to become so painful to the point where we have no choice, where that pain can be such a gift to wake us up to, I need something different than this. And if that's the case, then have it. Then go get it. Then speak up and say, I need this. The beauty of Aries energy is that, and I very much am telling this to myself as well. This is one of the reasons I'm so excited about the double dose of Aries energy, because when it comes time to choose to be disruptive so that you can have your needs met, I feel like that runs so deep in our conditioning as far as why would we ever not advocate for our needs? Like, for this, I go to the animal world. Like, when you look at, if you take human animals and set them aside and just look at the rest of the animals, when they experience danger, when they experience aggression from someone else, when they are afraid of anything, when they have fear of any kind, they go into fight or flight. Fight or flight. Those are basically the only two options for an animal who is backed into a corner, is either they're going to fight or they're going to run away. And the tension that comes into our body, the adrenaline that comes into our body that like tenses our muscles and makes us breathe faster and makes our face hot, it puts heat in our body. That is to help us run away or kick the shit out of the person that won't get away from us. Like that system works. Aries energy works for keeping us alive. It's both the birthplace of our life force energy and it's the protective mechanism to keep that life force energy continuing on into the future to keep us alive. So at this point, our conditioning, our social conditioning, our cultural conditioning, especially for women, but really for any of us, anger is really not allowed. Like when 2-year-olds throw temper tantrums, they get put in timeout. They get isolated from their community until they can get themselves together. Like they're 2 years old and already we're training them how to not listen to their life force energy. They're throwing that tantrum because something in their world is wrong. Something in their world is under threat. Something about their safety is not working out right now. And that could be that they think they need a cookie and you won't give them one and now they're having a tantrum, and it's easy to look at that from the outside and be like, they don't need a cookie. Their survival is not in jeopardy. But on the inside, it feels like it is. I would argue most of the time, even as adults, when we feel like we're under threat, we feel like we go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. We feel the fear response in our body. We feel the danger signals of our body, and we shut them down. We shut down. We freeze. We fawn, or we try to be charming to the aggressor so that they'll treat us nicer. Like, these two responses, the freeze and the fawn, they are very, very, very interesting to me. And I think the people, and I'm one of them, like I would say my dominant fear response is to first freeze and then to run away. So, like flight, yes. But when I get backed into a corner where I have to fight, my capability to do that is I don't know where that lives inside of me. I really don't. Um, but I think that's what we're all about to find out. We're about to find out, like, where does your fight live? What are the circumstances that will get you to fight for your own survival? Because when we freeze and when we fawn, there's a powerlessness in that. There's a belief that, like, I don't have the power to fight back or to even get out of the presence of the thing that is threatening me. I'm just gonna freeze and play dead. I'm just gonna fawn or, like, play nice with this aggressor. Like, those kinds of powerless responses, like, that's where I'm saying, like, I think if that's the capacity that we currently have, like that's as good as we can do. Again, nothing wrong with that. That's just where we might be as far as our evolution goes. If that's where we are, again, I see those as very Libran ways of handling an attack is to be quiet or to play nice. Those are both very Libra end of the spectrum things. And I see it playing out like when the Libra South Node gets around there, it's like those strategies, if people aren't already steamrolling you in like while you're using those strategies, the steamrolling is going to begin or possibly get worse. And on the flip side of that, like the consequences of not having your own needs met are going to get louder and louder and louder. As in, for example, like sometimes I get so sucked into like, what do they want? And 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 then I'm so busy trying to figure out like, what does everybody want? And then I miss the fact that like I haven't eaten since this morning, or, like now my blood sugar's crashing. Now I have a headache because I didn't put food in all along the way. Like I was so busy paying attention to other people that my body is not being cared for, that my life force energy is not being cared for. And the consequences of that, I think, are the stakes are going to go up. There's going to be more on the line when you aren't caring for yourself, that like the bets get bigger, that like if you're not going to take care of yourself, the losses are greater. And it's all in the effort. It's not to punish anybody. I hope nobody takes it that way. It's all in the effort to stoke these fires of personal responsibility, taking responsibility for your life, for your needs, of knowing what those needs are, how often they need to be met, the most efficient, expedient, effective way to meet those needs. And then if other people don't like it, they'll just have to deal with it. At least for this little bit of time that I need to go away and take care of myself. Other people will be in the same cycle of we'll all be cooking or marinating under that Aries North node. We'll all be going through these same Aries new moons. We'll all have Saturn go through Aries at the same time. Like sometimes, how do I want to say that? Like, we've started breaking these codependent patterns with the south node moving through Scorpio, and this next cycle will continue to dismantle those patterns whereby, like, let's say you have somebody who is very dependent on you. That, like, when you think about going and doing your own thing, like something that you need for you, something that, like, maybe you need more outside time than they need, or you like to exercise more than they like, or whatever it is, to where you're going to leave them temporarily and go outside or go exercise or whatever. Maybe even every day you're going to do this. And in that distance from you, this other person is launching a meltdown, is having a meltdown because they need you to be there. They need you to be paying attention to them. They need you to be there to feed them their lunch or to listen about their day or whatever it is that they think they need from you. It is entirely possible, especially the more entrenched you are in a codependent situation, that when we pull back to try to work on our own needs and focus on taking care of ourselves, that people who are unhealthily codependently reliant on us are going to have a problem. They're going to have a problem with you taking care of yourself instead of taking care of them. And in that situation, again, that is the choice of, like, okay, so now they're throwing a fit. Maybe they're even attacking you because they're so mad that you won't take care of them. Like, there's some kind of disruption in the environment. And it's like at that point, this is a very Aries North Node, Libra South Node type manifestation. At that point of this conflict between you and this other person, do you cave back into them and go back to meeting their needs so that they'll feel better? Libra, harmonizing with the other. Or do you tell them that I genuinely wish that I could take care of you and me at the same time, but I have to take care of me for these few things. And while I'm doing that, I do hope that you'll take care of yourself. I really do. And I'll be back in a few hours, and leave them in whatever kind of disrupted state. Let them find their own harmony. Let them cry it out if that's what they need to do. Like, when somebody launches a protest about you taking care of yourself, when they wanna call you selfish and make you feel bad because you wanna take care of you instead of them, which I think makes them the selfish one. But, like, when somebody starts calling you selfish, do you stick to it and take care of yourself and take that satisfaction from, I cared for my own system, I cared for my life force energy, I feel stronger and more healthy, more vital as a result of this care that I'm giving to myself, and my batteries feel more charged as a result of this care that I'm giving to myself. And as a result of how much better I feel, I have even more to give in the relationships. Like, when I'm ready to engage with other people, I have even more to give when I take really good care of myself. And so we can find satisfaction from that, or we can stay in a cycle of needing to be there for other people. And, as much as you might want to feel, maybe you do feel, maybe you don't feel, but I can see where it could be possible to, like, say that the person throwing the fit is the codependent one, and, like, I can't do what I need to do because they're codependent kinda thing. But it's like, if you're gonna cave, if you're gonna, like, give in to this fit that they're throwing, then there's more of an equal codependence between the 2 than just that person being codependent. I think the breaking the bonds of the codependency, again, that, like, the Scorpio South Node and then the Scorpio South Node and then the Libra South Node are both working us through this of sending us back into harmonizing with ourselves first and being dependent on ourselves first. And after that, if we have more to give, if we have, we want to be in relationship with people, we want to connect with people. And if, let's say, that person who's throwing the fit and they're like, well, I'm going to break up with you if you don't stay here with me. Okay. Okay. I'm going to take really good care of myself. And if you don't want me to be healthy, then I don't think this relationship's going to work out. And let it let it go, let yourself evolve into being with someone possibly that does want you to be healthy, that is not only encouraging you to take that time for yourself, but they hardly even notice because they're taking that time for themselves also. So, like, independent people inside of a relationship, like nobody's ever going to guilt or shame anybody about meeting their own needs. Self-care as a value is something that, like, we live it. We don't get permission from other people. Like, nobody's ever going to give us permission to, like, take care of ourselves, take really good care of ourselves. It's something that we have to grant to ourselves. And that's actually something, like, really interesting, um, that happened last week, where I got offered an all expenses paid trip to Las Vegas. And it was for a conference that, like, I already wanted to go to the conference, and I looked into it, and it's like $900 to register for the conference plus all your travel expenses and all of that. And I got offered, like, "Hey, do you wanna go? We'll pay for flight, hotel, meals while you're there. We'll register you for the conference. Like, do you want this? Like, it's free." And I had not even quite 24 hours to decide, and I decided, "No, I don't want to go." And the reason that I decided that was because at the time, I was already, like, literally that morning, right before, like, a couple hours before I got the email with the invitation or whatever, um, I had already just said to myself that you don't get to say yes to anything else until this pinch in my shoulder is healed, until my body is, like, done protesting at the rate that I have been working lately. So my body's already protesting, and I had made this deal with my body. I'm like, if you'll heal, I won't sign us up for anything else until you're healed. And it's like, all right, break. We're on the same team. Here we go. Couple hours later, here's an email. All expenses paid trip to Vegas. You get to go for 3 days. You need to leave on Sunday. That was like 4 days from where I was having to decide. And I decided, no. No, I'm not going to go. I made a deal with my body that we're going to heal. And that is what's most important. So I see all of this Aries energy being almost like a reprioritization of what is most important to you. Like Taurus North Node, we've been working through, like, what are your values? What do you find truly valuable in this life? And what are you willing to give your time and your limited resources to because of how valuable it is? And I think Aries North Node is just going to turn up the volume on that, that, like, you get to prioritize whatever you want, but at the same time, like, radical responsibility. Like, you have no one to blame for the consequences of your actions other than you. And I knew my body already fucking hurts. It already hurts. It's already in pain. It's already protesting the pace that I have been pushing myself lately. And now here I am. Like, am I going to take this in pain, like, afflicted body and go put it on an airplane and then sleep in a bed that I don't know and be on my feet around a whole bunch of people and then put myself back on a plane? Not to mention, like, the 3 days of work that I already feel behind. That's part of why I'm pushing like this. And then I'm gonna take off 3 days from work and go further exhaust and drain my body, and then come back and be that much further behind in my work. What I did instead was I emptied my calendar like I was gonna go, and then I didn't go. So I took I took I got the best of both worlds. I was like, because if I was gonna go to Vegas, I would cancel this, I would reschedule this, I would move this, I would move this, and I would have this space where it was cleared out just for me, just for what I wanted to be doing right then. And so I'm like, why can't I still do that? Why can't I still carve out this time? And so I rescheduled this and I moved this to next week and I moved this and I took 6 days and I emptied my calendar and I stayed at home. I took it really slow. I did my fun stuff. I took naps almost every day and I let all of the things that I had to reschedule, I let them wait. They'll be there when I'm done taking care of myself and prioritizing what truly matters to me. Because at the end of the day, I had to look at it like, as we weigh these things out, like on one hand, yeah, I could go somewhere I've never been to Vegas before. I could go to a conference that I already wanted to go to. I was interested in learning and networking at this event. Like I could get those things. Those things have value. And my physical health has value. And so it was very much a matter of weighing out which of these is more important to me right now. Not in general, not like some philosophical event maybe far in the future that may or may not happen. No, right here, right now, do I have the energetic resources to go out here and do this other thing just because it's free? Or do I need to take care of myself? Do I have needs within myself that need to be met that are more urgent in their priority than this opportunity? And there was such a case of FOMO, like fear of missing out, where I was very aware that, like, this conference only happens once a year. So it's only right now. If I don't go, I'll have to wait a whole nother year to get to go. And then who the hell knows if anybody's going to want to pay for me to go? I might have to shell out my own $2,000. But for where I was right now, the value calculation just didn't work out. It just didn't make sense. It was like, no, my physical body has needs that are more important than this thing over here. And that was the end of that. And so I think, again, kind of going full circle, it's like this Aries energy that's going to start with the new moons, then the north node, then Saturn and Neptune. This Aries energy is going to be turning up the volume on what is it that you need? What is it that you desire? Like our life force energy is so intertwined with how we're choosing to live on a day to day basis. For example, if we work in a job where, like like how I described the place where I worked in Texas, it was like this job, when I go there and I sit in my chair, it sucks the soul out of my body a little bit more each day. That's how it felt. And that is the opposite of Aries energy. It's like I'm doing this job for reasons that have nothing to do with who I am and what I want, right? Like this event, this day-to-day experience of my life, like it's not matching up with who I am or what I want. And I was starting to feel more and more and more dead on the inside. Like my life force energy like just wasn't coursing through my veins on a daily basis. I felt very lifeless. And so I think like, you know, the good news is, the good news is that all of these Aries transits, they'll bring us back to life. They will, come hell or high water. They'll wake us up however they can, however we need to be woken up. Sometimes like a small pain, a small conflict, a small something, and it's like, oh yeah, that's terrible. Like let me pivot and I'm going to choose this and I'm going to go this way from now on, and like a small course correction and we're good to go. Other times we are so wrapped around and all intertwined with what it is that isn't good for us. And it takes some really intense pain and pressure to get us to let it go and to do what is best for us instead. And so I think like there are depths, there are layers of our needs. There are social needs that we have to connect with other people. There are physical needs that we have that are just sensations inside of our body that move through us that want to be dealt with. Things like hunger pains coming and going, things like your bladder communicating to you that you need to go to the bathroom, things like feeling restless and like, I just really want to hug. Like these are all physical sensations that are part of that life force energy talking to us. And it's like when we have numbed out our life force energy in favor of making a priority of harmonizing with other people, our life force energy, not only can it not communicate to us those like physical needs that we have, but Aries, that primal fire energy, cardinal fire energy, it's like the initial spark of like your soul's passion in this lifetime. Like it's the first of the three fire signs, the other two fire signs being Leo and Sag. It's like without Aries energy and like feeling who you are in a primal way, expressing who you are, Leo, is nearly impossible. Exploring the range of who you are and exploring how you relate to others out in the world, like Sag, nearly impossible if you don't know who you are. So, like, Aries is at the core, it's at the base level of like our health and vitality in this life. And I see the afflictions going through the roof as far as like if we are neglecting our physical needs, the consequences will get bigger. And when we meet those physical needs, when we take really good care of ourselves, our vitality will go through the roof. And what your life looks like when you are living inside a healthy, vital life force coursing through your veins body, life looks completely different than it did when you felt lifeless and half dead already. So I think, the potential for the journey to be painful, this is life. Pain is part of the package, but that pain can be a teacher. It can give us a lot of guidance around what works for us and what doesn't. Our body will tell us when we are in a situation that does not work for us. And at that point, it's our work to either listen or don't. And, I think one of the main reasons that we don't listen is it is causing a disruption or it's threatening the harmony with other people. And so I think that's where coming off of the Taurus North Node, like right before we do the Aries North Node, like what we're building right now and for this last little stretch of the Taurus North Node is a sense of self worth, is a sense of inner security, is a sense of knowing that like I'm valuable. My needs are valuable. Taking care of my physical self is valuable. And that if I know how to do that, then if other people aren't okay with it and they want to leave, yes, that could be painful. Loss is always painful, change is always painful, but if they choose to leave, they're not taking my nurturing with them. I'm my nurturer. I'm who meets my needs. I'm who takes care of me. So I'm not dependent on anybody to provide for my primal needs. And I feel like I could talk on and on and on about this, and I only have about 5 more minutes before I need to go for today. We'll talk about this again a lot more in the Libra full moon live stream that we'll have 2 weeks from now, and then again in the next Aries new moon live stream since we're having two in a row. We'll continue to talk about this. So if you have any questions at all, this is always so general where I'm talking to everybody all at the same time. But if you have specific questions, specific examples, or specific challenges that, like, what do you think about this or whatever, I'm happy to weigh in as much as I possibly can. Um, so I do think that by the end of this, like, I don't know where this came from, but the date that was in my head yesterday is 8 years from now, 2031. There is a turning point that is happening. And again, I'm such a newbie to giving out predictions like this, and who the hell knows where this comes from or how much water it actually holds. Maybe this bucket leaks. I don't know. But it makes so much sense to me that in 2031, we are experiencing it's not just a new beginning in our human species. It is the rebirth of the end of an era of the species that we have been and the beginning of the species that we will be going forward. And these next 8 years, the forefront, the very tip of the spear, which is very fun relation since we're talking about Aries, which is like the warrior archetype. The tip of the spear is being able to meet our own needs and being able to soothe ourselves in moments of discomfort, which is again to say to meet our own needs. That is what we're working on. That is what we are building. And the way that we are doing that, it'll continue to evolve as we go. But it starts with these two Aries new moons that we are having on March 21st and April 19th, 2023. We are, I would imagine, going to begin by seeing kind of a status check of like, where are we? Where are we? And how dependent are we on ourselves or others to take care of us? Um, and how's that going? Like nothing is wrong. There's no wrong way to choose to live your life. And like everybody is going to have a different set of needs and a different way to go about meeting those needs. The thing that I would watch for if I were you, this is how I watch for things, is like if it's getting in your way, if it's holding you back, if it's fucking up your life, that's a problem. If it's not, then don't worry about it. Like, there's no right way that you have to be. There's no like, oh, don't do this or like you'll go to hell. Like, no, that's just so not a thing, at least in my world. It's more about like, does it work for you? Nothing is wrong until it doesn't work for you. And then it's your job to put a stop to it. Maybe not stopping their behavior, but at least stopping their behavior coming into your experience. Um, with that, I we do have only ourselves. They're actually, oh, if you wait for me for just a second and let me see if I can find this poem that I wrote. I'm going to look for it for a second. If I can't find it easily, we'll abandon ship and I'll post it in the comments. Oh, I found it. It's meant to be. Okay. It's called The In Between. And this is one of 3 poems that I've ever written in my life. They come out when they're ready to come out and they just write themselves. And so this is like from source energy as far as I'm concerned. The in between, when no one's watching, the time I feel most seen, the only audience that ever matters, the only voice I ever need, saying what I've eternally intended, saying what I've eternally intended, love thyself, even when the others aren't willing. The in between is when life really happens, the bottomless crack between experiences, the resounding echo of nothing but my own breath. I'm the only one who never leaves. In the in between, I am finally seen. I'm the only one who never leaves. If you want your back to be had, then have your back. And I say this with love because I'm the first one that like lets the masseuse like dig into myself, like and friggin' hurt me and not speak up for myself. But at the end of the day, like we only have ourselves. The only person that we are guaranteed to receive support from all day, every day, no matter what, is us. And so I feel like these Aries new moons, and then in July, when the North Node steps into Aries, we will be shown how strong of an advocate are you for you? And how's that working in your life? Do you need to practice being a stronger advocate for yourself? This is something that I am actively practicing. Like I had my life coaching session yesterday with my coach, and something that we were working on is like there's this person in my life who's passive aggressive to me sometimes, and I just always freeze and like never know what to say. And she gave me like a couple of phrases on like, say this, say, I don't want to hear that. Oh, well, what do you mean? I was just joking. Okay, but I don't want to hear that. That tone, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. And in the moment of her giving this to me, it felt so risky. It felt so scary to think about, like, oh my God, am I really going to say that to somebody? I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. No, I don't want to hear that. The more I say it out loud, I've said it out loud about 100 times now, and the more I say it out loud, the closer I'm inching to, like, actually thinking that I could maybe say that to somebody at some point. But it's also like, and I'll leave you with this, it's what Stephen Forrest calls learning to hiss. It's not about hurting anybody, it's not about attacking anybody, it's not about being an asshole just for the sake of, like, being a fighter and, like, I'm tough and I'm gonna fight it out, like, that is so not what we're talking about. But when somebody charges into your space or somebody is like, doing something that hurts you, you have every right to hiss. You have every right to get your claws out and swipe in their direction so they know that they don't need to come any closer. Back off. I don't want to hear that. We have every right to stand up for what we need. Other people have every right to ignore us. Other people have every right to point and laugh. Everybody else has every right to their own internal choices, but we have every right to say what it is that we need. And that is something that, some people in this life, maybe because of past lives, like they come in and they're supercharged in their ability to speak their mind and tell their opinions, and they get mad and it comes right out and like they just move right on. And other people's doesn't work like that. And typically around my channel, I tend to attract people who are like me. And so we tend to be conflict avoidant people pleasers. And so this next chapter could be a little bit challenging for those of us that are in those patterns of keeping the peace in the outside experience. But again, I think, we're not starting from square one. We have a basis of what we've already been doing, the healing that we've already been going through, the inner stability that we've been building. We're not getting just kicked into the deep end of the water here. We've been building our ability to swim for some time. And this next round of the nodes moving into Aries and this Aries energy focus that we're stepping into these next several years, we are becoming even more empowered, even more alive with who we are and why we came here at this time. Because when you have full life force energy coursing through your body, you are ready and able to live out the mission of like, why were you coming here in the first place? You're in touch with your gut instincts, and that's what navigates you onto that path of perfect place, perfect time. But it starts with deep listening inside of us. Thank you so much for joining me for today's live stream. For those of you in the Patreon, you got an email about us moving the Sacred Circle. If any of you are looking to join a community space, we have Sacred Circles once a month. The next one is coming up on March 7th. That was moved from February 28th. So this is the February Sacred Circle, where we meet on Zoom for a couple hours and we have a spiritual conversation, kind of just around whatever topics are coming up. It usually we are able to find some common threads through the entire group of like we're all kind of collectively experiencing something very similar. And just even getting to talk to other people about it, like that you're not alone. That you're not crazy for how you're feeling because like here's, six people sitting around a Zoom like saying like, "Yep, me too." So just even the togetherness and the connection with like-hearted souls is such a bright spot in my own personal month. So if that's something that you're interested in, the Patreon is Pay What Feels Good. We recommend about a $5 donation per month. And that gets you access to the Sacred Circles. So that's how you can join that. I also have a newsletter. The link to that is in the description box, and we send out an email through the newsletter about once a month with a guide to the zodiac season that we're in. So the next one will be coming out soon, and it'll be for Pisces season. So it's tarot prompts and journal prompts and some information about like Pisces energy, just kind of in general, some self-care pointers on how to really care for your Pisces energy and some crystals that go really well with Pisces energy. So that is really fun. It comes out once a month. The newsletter is totally free to sign up for if you want to check that out. Um, I think that's it. I'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about the Libra full moon that will be next after this upcoming Aries new moon. Until then, I do hope that you'll take such good care of yourselves, and so will I. I'll see you next time. Okay, bye. Okay, bye. Okay, bye.